Welcome back to the All Access Studio. My name's Marty Finn. I am your co-host for Talent Connect Live. Thanks for coming back. Joining me now is one of our guests, Leslie Miley, who has an incredibly impressive resume with some organizations such as the Obama Foundation, Slack, ModCloth, Apple, Twitter, Google, just a couple that you might have heard of before. So Leslie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
So I gotta ask, first question. Your Twitter handle is @Shaft. What is the story behind that?
It's hard to grow up in a tough neighborhood with a name like Leslie. So you try to find a name that signifies toughness. Shaft signifies toughness until you're about 13 years old, and then 13-year-old boys can be really cruel with anything. So Leslie became a lot easier after that.
All right, very good. Well, I love the creativity. All right, so the first question we're asking all of our guests are, what were your career aspirations when you were a kid? You mentioned already, because of the bad neighborhood, you're a fast runner, so maybe you wanted to be an Olympian, but what did you want to be when you grew up?
Wow, I wanted to be everything. As a child, I wanted to be a race car driver. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to be a physicist. And living and growing up in Silicon Valley, technology was everywhere. You saw it on TV, you heard about it from your friends. So it was, while it seems natural, it wasn't natural that I ended up in it, but it seems natural today that I would have ended up in technology.
Nice, very nice. So switching gears a little bit here, we're obviously focused on a lot of education right now. Diversity is a big topic at Talent Connect this year. What can companies do today to really build and foster a diverse workforce, in your opinion?
What can they do to build and foster a diverse workforce? There's a lot they can do. And I think my biggest ask of any company is to understand where the systems they have that are injecting bias, that are continuing to enable inequitable outcomes, specifically with women and people of color, and specifically women of color. Most systems we have today were built to favor certain groups, men in particular. And knowing that and knowing where they are favored, I think is the very first part of just understanding the scope of the problem.
Yeah, it's a really great step one. That makes a lot of sense. So you've been an engineering leader at a ton of familiar companies. I mentioned some at the beginning of our interview. Are there any diversity initiatives that you can recall from your career thus far that have really stuck out as being incredibly impactful for any of those companies, or just to you personally from the work that you've done?
I don't think programs. I think, and I don't want to say culture, and maybe it has more to do with what leadership says and what leadership does. Stuart Butterfield at Slack is a leader who really embraces inclusion in all its forms, and he has been the person at the company that is most vocal about it, and I think that's where it starts. I mean, if you look at the statistics, you look at the results, the numbers haven't changed in 5 years since Google first published their numbers. They really haven't changed that much, and there've been hundreds of millions of dollars spent. And I think what you have to do is you have to start changing. People have to start changing. You have to have transformative leadership. You need to have transformative programs so that people can understand the scope of the problem, the depth of the problem, and then ways to address the problem, repair the problems, and then start to prevent the problems in the future.
Yeah. So you mentioned the numbers aren't moving, and you're a big advocate for companies being transparent about their numbers. Why is that so? And I think a lot of companies are hesitant because their numbers aren't great, right? So why do you feel that companies are hesitant, and why do you think they should be transparent?
Two good questions. I think they're hesitant because they don't want bad news. However, everyone knows the news is bad, so right. That's no longer an excuse. And I think just being transparent helps everyone start from first principles. It's amazing to me that Silicon Valley and tech companies are all about open source, all about sharing data so that progress can be made faster, so that people can understand. That's why we have standard APIs. The fascinating thing is that you're not getting that with D&I. People, with the numbers of women, the number of minorities, promotion rates, retention rates, you don't get that, and people call it a competitive advantage. I don't see how that's a competitive advantage. However, I think if you go out there and you just publish all that data and give everyone the same set of data to work from, you can really start having the conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, and kind of level the playing field a little bit.
And no one can hide behind their shiny graphics, right? Everyone has to say, these are our numbers. And if you recall, there was a great article, I think in the Reveal, about EEO1 reports from tech companies. And you had companies like Oracle saying, we think it's a competitive advantage because then people can target our women of color. And I'm thinking, if that is the reason not to share data, your problem is internal, not external.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, spirit of transparency and companies sharing. What is your thoughts on companies being transparent and sharing about their salaries and any gaps they might have?
Please do it. just let's really. I mean, the data's out there. It's on Glassdoor. It's on Salary.com. People can get that, and I think it removes the distrust that people have, and particularly as an African American, I am always distrustful because all the data supports that I'm going to be paid less. So if you come out and say, this is what our salary, this is what people are being paid, and these are the ranges, I mean, that's just going to build trust with your employees.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And potential employees too, for that matter,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, because they know what they can expect when they come in the door.
Absolutely.
The last time I negotiated for a position, I literally put it back on them and said, you have all the data. So you have all the data. You will give me an offer that will be comparable with and competitive to everyone else. If it's not, I won't take it.
Sure.
And the funny thing is, they gave me an offer that was within $500 of Glassdoor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
great stuff. So I think there's a lot of companies out there, completely agree with what you shared, that are struggling with that, getting to that level of transparency or even being comfortable sharing those kind of statistics, whether it's around diversity or salaries. What would you say to some of those companies that are really at like square zero to even get to square one? How do they start to become more comfortable with it, and what would you recommend?
I recommend having the discussion with your stakeholders in the company that this is what you want to do, and that what is it going to take to do it, and then just do it. And I know that sounds really simple, and it is. It's any negative press, any negativity that you think is going to come out of it will quickly be replaced by your employees being happier, by you being able to attract people accordingly. If you cannot pay, then because some companies are venture funded, some of them don't have that, then you're just going to have to create the type of workplace that will attract people. And I think if people just do that, everything will happen. I mean, because if you join a company and you get a bad offer, you may take the offer, but you're going to leave, right? Or you just won't take the offer. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's information that's going to get out, and it's never going to look good if you try to hide it.
Yep, absolutely. So something we're going to ask all of our interviewees this week, it's a LinkedIn tradition. We ask, what is something that is not on your LinkedIn profile? So you have a very extensive career, but we always ask, like, what would I not know about you by looking at your LinkedIn profile?
Wow, what would you not know about me if you looked at my LinkedIn profile? I spend a lot of time wondering if and this is not so much on my LinkedIn profile, but it's something that I spend a lot of time talking with people about, wondering if what we've done in tech has really been positive. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel that way today for a lot of reasons. And working with a few people to try to figure out how to push back on some of the trends that we have started, like the rapid dissemination of information that is false, right? Mm-hmm. The algorithmic timelines that give you more negative sentiment than positive sentiment because you click more on negative sentiment. Right. It's like, how can we start combating that? You don't see that because it's very nascent, but it's something that I'm thinking about and talking with people about on a weekly basis, because if we don't change that in the next election cycle, in the next big news cycle, we're just going to continue to have more negative conversations and not positive conversations.
Absolutely. Very well said. Well, I want to thank you for joining us here in the studio and joining us at Talent Connect. Everybody stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more speakers and great interviews coming right to you from Talent Connect Live. See you soon.
Thank you.